Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to NASA's Johnson Space Center. Happy Sunday. It's flight day 10 aboard the Space Shuttle Atlantis and the International Space Station, and here to talk about all the activities going on aboard the International Space Station with the final hours of the joint mission is Chris Edelin. He is the lead flight director for the International Space Station part of this STS-135 Utilization Logistics Flight 7 mission. I'll turn it over to Chris and let him brief you on all the activities, and then we'll take questions. Chris.
Thanks, Kyle. Well, the crew had another very busy day in space today aboard the International Space Station and the Space Shuttle Atlantis. They reached a key milestone today in that the Raffaello logistics module was closed out. All the cargo that has been coming up to space station has been transferred over. That was actually completed a couple days ago, and today they've packed Raffaello with all the return cargo that's going to be coming back to Earth. Just for the numbers out there, we delivered 9,403 pounds of cargo in the multi-purpose logistics module up to the station, and we are returning 5,666 pounds of cargo inside the logistics module. So all that is packed up, and if you saw any of the video today from the crew, the module is real clean, and everything's neatly put away in the proper place, strapped down for entry in the shuttle later this week. And the crew also installed the control and power assemblies, which are the silver controllers there at the hatch leading into the multi-purpose logistics module. Those will be used tomorrow to drive the bolts. Of course, once the hatches are closed, and they'll drive the bolts to release the logistics module, and then Sandy Magnus and Doug Hurley will use the station robotic arm to transfer that logistics module from the Node 2 Earth-facing port back into the payload bay of Atlantis. So we're very pleased with the crew's progress on MPLM transfer today. The other big part of the cargo plan for this mission is to transfer our mid-deck payload. As you can recall, several shuttle crew members will typically sit on the mid-deck of a space shuttle during launch and landing. In this case, with only 4 crew members, we had an empty mid-deck, so we were able to fly up about 2,000 pounds of supplies, including the packing material and the support structure. So we are about 84% complete with our mid-deck transfer. We are showing positive margins on the crew timeline to get that transfer completed by tomorrow morning. Some of the items that are being transferred late in the mission, they consist of the science samples. A lot of these samples have to remain cold, and in support of that, we did transfer a glacier refrigerator from the shuttle mid-deck to the space station to provide essentially a new science refrigerator to the space station. And one of the existing glaciers is coming back on the mid-deck of Atlantis, full of science samples for return. And tomorrow the crew will transfer the remaining science samples. Another couple of noteworthy mid-deck payloads that were transferred today. Ron Guerin today performed a removal of the mass spectrometer in our mass constituent analyzer. It's a device in the U.S. laboratory that samples the air from different parts of space station, and it can determine what the constituents are, whether they be water vapor, CO2, and other gases, and O2, of course. So that has been broken for about 2 weeks approximately, and he removed that from the lab atmosphere rack, and he has packaged that up and transferred that to the mid-deck of Atlantis for return. And also yesterday, Sergei Volkov, one of our cosmonauts aboard the International Space Station, he performed some work on the treadmill, the TVIS treadmill down in the Russian segment. That was yesterday and the day before. One of the things he did was remove the gyroscope that was suspect. He removed that. That has been placed in the mid-deck for return, and he installed a new gyroscope. And then yesterday, he had also installed another controller upstream of the gyroscope. That did fix the problem. We now have a good treadmill for the Russian cosmonauts down in the service module. And of course, the U.S. ground specialists were key members of that troubleshooting plan, because the TVIS was designed and built in the U.S., and it's been an item that was transferred to the Russian segment some time ago. So all around good work and good results there. So with that, tomorrow, again, we'll be returning the MPLM to the payload bay. We will be completing the mid-deck transfers, and then at the end of the day, the crews will shake hands and say their farewells and close the hatch, and then Atlantis will undock early Tuesday morning. And that's all I have for the status, and I'll be glad to open it up for questions.
Okay, great. We'll start here. If you don't mind, step up to that microphone so everybody on the net watching can hear you, and we'll start with Mark.
Mark Carreau for Aviation Week, and I just wonder if there's anything you're still really evaluating on whether to send back or not on the shuttle, one place or the other.
We are pretty much closed out our paperwork for return. One item that we're considering is whether we might grab a few of the extra camera lenses on the shuttle and bring those back. There's also a laser rangefinder that we were considering to return. The shuttle has 2 of those, and we were considering perhaps leaving one of those on board the International Space Station. So that paperwork will get closed out overnight tonight.
Robert.
Hi, Robert Perlman with CollectSpace.com. Can you give a rough idea, maybe by percentage, of the contents of Raffaello now? Is it mostly trash? Is it mostly equipment to be reused? How does it break down between the types of items that are coming back to Earth?
I do not have a percentage breakdown, but by volume, there is a lot of foam, because every mechanical system, every ORU, an orbital replacement unit that comes up to the station, comes up in protective foam. So there is a lot of foam that takes up a lot of volume on station, and that was one of the key objectives for this flight, was to bring down trash and especially foam, because it takes up so much volume. There is a lot of just general trash and broken items, and of course some items for reuse. But I do not have a specific breakdown.
Clara Moskowitz for Space.com. I understand the crew had some off-duty time today, and I just wonder if you can give us an idea of some of the activities that are available to them on their day off. I mean, did they call home or watch movies, anything like that?
Well, unfortunately today, it appeared to me from the video downlink that they were having to work through most of their off-duty time. This was a big job to get this MPLM loaded up, and the timeline tomorrow is very tight. They wake up and they go ahead and start deconfiguring and basically powering down that module in preparation to close the hatch and transfer. So there's not any spare time tomorrow to finish things up, and the crew used a lot of their spare time today to make sure that everything was in place in the module. So unfortunately, they had to work through some of their off-duty time. Now, just generally speaking, on the space station, and this applies to space shuttle crews that come over to use some of the resources on the space station, off-duty time, crews love looking out the window, of course, with the cupola. That provides a great view of the world. They can use the internet phone to call home if we have comm coverage with our high-gain dish antenna. And then, of course, they can listen to music and hang out with their friends. So typical kind of things you do on, if you were having some quiet time at home.
Anybody else? Irene?
Thanks. Irene Klotz with Reuters. That mass spectrometer, are you planning on repairing that and reflying it on one of the ATV, HTV, or Proton, or Progress, or one of the other vehicles?
No firm plans yet to refly that. The main thing we need to do now is get it on the ground to understand why it has failed. We actually have 2 of the mass, or the constituent analysis machines on board station, and both of them are not functioning right now. So we're having to rely on Russian equipment to be able to determine the components in the atmosphere on space station, as well as handheld devices that we can use. So since both are failed, the common failure mode has been the mass spectrometer assembly. We do want to understand what is going on with that piece of hardware before we actually try to plug in our spare. We have one on board that we can use, and actually we have one that may be functional, but we're afraid to use it because we don't want to mess it up in the spot where we've had 2 failures before. So we have spares on board. We just want to analyze the failure that actually occurred before we commit to using that hardware on board. But eventually we could refly those.
Thanks. And after the EVA, there was some discussion about leaving up an EMU versus bringing it back. I think Ron Guerin was saying that their druthers was to leave it there, even though you all wanted to, or there was some discussion to bring it back and repair it and refly. So do you know what the upshot of that was? And then just in general, how have you been kind of deciding what to bring back and repair, not knowing when you're going to get to fly it back up there? because of what the uncertainty with the commercial resupply, and how's that been kind of working out as you make your way through the end of this flight?
Okay, just to specifically address the EMU, yes, Ron Guerin's EMU was a bit of a tight fit. That was known going into his EMU is a spacesuit, by the way. That was known to be a tight fit for him. He did report that he had some trouble at just a few points in the EVA actually being able to move his arm through the full range of motion. And the ground teams were initially concerned that could have indicated a problem with the bearings and the shoulder, one of the shoulder joints. We did have a conference with him and get the details on what he observed, and we actually had him examine the spacesuit and move it through its full range of motion in the airlock, comparing against the other spacesuit to make sure that it was absolutely fine. And the ground team and the crew did reach the unanimous conclusion that it was just fine. It was more of a fit issue where a couple orientations it was hard to move it. So that spacesuit that he used is in the shuttle. It has been resized for Rex Walheim if it's required for a contingency EVA, and everybody is comfortable that suit will be perfectly usable if it's required. And of course, replacing that one on the spacesuit is a brand new, what we call a Mega Plus, which has been upgraded to last anywhere from 3 to 6 years. So it'll give us a good lifetime. So the decision process we went through the spacesuit is similar to what we do with any piece of equipment. It's whenever there's problems with equipment, we always make a real careful evaluation whether it's better to leave it on board, if we perhaps can address any issues with onboard maintenance, or whether we should bring it home. And you're right, the fact that we're somewhat limited in how we can deliver cargo to space station requires us to carefully weigh the pros and cons. And really, we have to do that on a case-by-case basis with each piece of hardware.
Thanks. And the last question I had was just as your shifts are starting to dwindle in numbers now, have you noticed anything just kind of different, the mood in mission control, or people starting to kind of get their arms around the idea that this is the end? Thanks.
Actually, we've been very busy working the flight, and most of the time we're just answering the questions from the crew and working through the replanning issues for the timeline. But I actually had a dream last night that I was in mission control and looking at the downlink video and seeing the beautiful wings of Atlantis, docked to the front of the space station. And in my dream, when I woke up, I realized, hey, I really do need to savor these moments, because this will be the last time we see likely it'll be the last time we ever see a big winged vehicle like that docked to the space station. So I pointed that out to the team to make sure that they, as time permits, of course, to take a few moments to really savor these moments, because it'll definitely be something to tell your grandchildren about. And hopefully when you tell your grandchildren about it, it might be over a phone link to a spacecraft somewhere in deep space. But even though we're losing the shuttle, we're looking forward to seeing some new vehicles come up to space station. We're looking forward to the commercial providers that are now finalizing their vehicles and in the test phase and beginning to do flight testing. We're looking forward to seeing those new vehicles, different shapes arriving on space station, and so it'll be an exciting time.
Gina.
Gina Sinceri, ABC News. We've seen that Sandy and Satoshi are really following the soccer game, even though they'll be sleeping tonight. Can you upload video to them, and how will you get them updates?
We do routinely provide video for our space station crew. They can provide inputs to a team of support folks on the ground that they tell them what their favorite TV shows are, and we do try to tape those and provide, of course, on a delayed basis. We'll uplink that through our high gain KU band antenna, our dish antenna. The game, I expect we'll probably tape that and send that up as well. Although I think right now the crew's got a very busy day tomorrow. They're not going to have any time to watch it tomorrow, and they better not stay up all night and watch it either, because they've got way too much to do tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah, Philip.
Philip Sloss with NASASpaceflight.com. I had a question on the TVIS gyro. Last time you were here, I think you said there was still some uncertainty about whether the problem's with the gyro or with something else in the system, and maybe I missed it in the commentary on the air to ground, but could you just review what happened in terms of the troubleshooting there?
Okay, just to summarize, 2 days ago, Sergei Volkov replaced the gyroscope in the treadmill, the treadmill down in the Russian segment, and that did not work. It powered on but did not spin up. So yesterday, we had him replace the vibration isolation system controller, the VIS controller, which was the next component upstream, and we also had him replace the cable as well. So we basically worked from the gyroscope upstream, and when he replaced the VIS controller, that did the trick. That fixed it, and we had him test the treadmill. He did some more testing today, and we verified we've got a good treadmill, and it's good to go. So we are returning the failed VIS controller to the ground, and the gyroscope that was previously failed, I believe, I don't have the exact date that it failed, but it was earlier this month, approximately April timeframe. That will be brought back to the ground. There was some discussion of whether we should leave it on board or not, because now it appears that the VIS controller was at least part of the problem. But when it failed, the crew had reported that it made somewhat of a grinding sound, and it spun down very quickly. So it indicated there could be a problem with the bearings. Now, we can do bearing repair in orbit, but as you can imagine, that is potentially a very messy problem. So we'd rather go ahead and get that unit on the ground with the VIS controller. We can set those up in our ground unit and test those. And then if the bearings need to be repacked, we'll do that on the ground and then make that unit available for launch again. Of course, since this is now Russian hardware, it will be the Russians' responsibility to launch it. But we'll go ahead and do the troubleshooting and do any repairs as necessary on the ground.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Dan.
Hi, I'm Pete Crow, Grove Sun Daily. Given that a significant amount of what's coming back down is trash and foam and one thing and another, I'm curious how you get to such a precise figure, down to the pound and perhaps down to the ounce. I got it how you know what you took up, but how are you figuring out what you're bringing back down?
Well, we are NASA, so we do work in exact numbers. Rounding is definitely not in our DNA around here. But you know, every item on the space station is tracked. We have a database that tracks where every item is, of course, what the mass was, because anything you launch into space, that mass and volume are the two most important physical characteristics in order to physically fit it into a spacecraft and get it off the ground. So we keep all those in an extensive database, and when we tell the crew to transfer an item, we have the mass, and they can add them all up in spreadsheets. I have to admit, I also sometimes roll my eyes when I see the weight for a CD or a DVD, but that's what we do.
Okay, I think we've got a couple of folks on the phone bridge. Bill Harwood, CBS News. Are you there, Bill?
Yeah, I'm here, Kyle. Thanks. Chris, I just want to follow up on one of Irene's questions about your thoughts here as this is winding down. I mean, the MPLM's done a yeoman's work on the station. I think they told Sandy it had taken up 150 tons or something like that over its career and 20 tons back to Earth. I mean, that's going to be a big loss to you guys, commercial cargo or not. I know you're still looking at the end of the mission and getting everything done, but, any thoughts you had on the role this is all played in keeping the station resupplied, I'd appreciate. Thanks.
That's a good question, Bill. When the space station was first being built, obviously, it couldn't have been done without the space shuttle. I mean, the space shuttle's payload bay is enormous, and nothing matches it. So, the shuttle was absolutely essential for the assembly of the big modules and truss segments on the space station. With the MPLMs, we've been able to bring up not only spare parts, but we've brought up big rack units, the big refrigerator-sized units that plug in. But now that we've got all of that hardware in place, and we've got lots of spares, the past several years of shuttle flights, we've flown up many external spares. They're stationed and positioned all throughout the outside of the space station. We've got all these spares in place. The space station program is actually in very good shape now for the retirement of the space shuttle. If you look at what sustaining logistics are required, we can support that, but we do need our U.S. commercial cargo providers to be brought online next year. I mean, that will be absolutely essential. And if they fail in their effort to reach the space station, then the program will have to find another source to keep the supplies going, or we'll have to consider scaling back the number of crew and the amount of science that we're doing on the space station. So our commercial providers, understand this responsibility, and they're savoring the chance now to get to step in to fill the shoes that the shuttle has filled. But the numbers have been analyzed, and it is not only possible, but it is achievable.
Anything else, Bill? How about James Dean? Are you on, James?
Yes, Kyle, thank you. James Dean with Florida Today. Chris, one more way of asking this cargo.
No, I'm good, Kyle, thanks.
Down mass specifically, could you speak a little bit to the challenge of losing that capability for a while, and wondered if you could compare the capability you'll ultimately gain, hopefully, with Dragon to what you're putting into, either the mid-deck or the MPLM?
Well, Dragon does have, as you alluded to, Dragon can bring back supplies. It will parachute down into the ocean as they demonstrated on their previous mission. So we can bring back science samples on Dragon. We have multiple vehicles we can use to get rid of trash, whether it be a Russian Progress supply ship, a Japanese HTV supply ship, or a European ATV. So any one of those can be used to empty out the trash type cargo that gets burned up in the atmosphere when the craft re-enters the atmosphere. So the models have all been run. We can maintain safe, sustainable space station operations out through 2020 with that mix of Russian, Japanese, European, and American spacecraft. I don't have any exact numbers for you on what the contribution for each of those are.
Thanks. And just another question on things kind of winding to an end. Just wondered if you're thinking that this farewell ceremony tomorrow is going to be kind of hard to watch, something difficult to see the last shuttle crew exiting the station hatches for the last time. And also, I was wondering if is this the last time that we'll ever see more than 6 people together on station, or are there plans to, eventually later, even if not for long duration, for short trips, to have bigger crowds at one time? Thanks.
Well, I fully expect when we have commercial vehicles providing crew transport to the space station that we will see crews of 6 or more, especially when they're doing crew rotation, perhaps. We certainly have the docking ports to support it. Of course, without a specific vehicle being defined, we have no traffic model, so can't answer the question specifically, but it may be or it may not be. Will tomorrow's ceremony be especially poignant? I'm sure it will, for the crew and the folks on the ground, especially our Space Shuttle flight control team and the engineers that have supported the Space Shuttle over the years. Seeing the Space Shuttle being retired is like seeing a good friend retiring, someone who's put in many years of service. And so, it's always sad when you see someone retire, but you also, look forward to, new people coming online, and it does create opportunities with shuttle retirement for new vehicles to come online to service the space station. But for the space station team, we're looking forward to moving from the space shuttle era, where it was focused on assembly operations, to now the space station is completely built. The shuttle was the key enabler for that, and now we've got this amazing, we call it a world-class facility, but really it's beyond world-class because it's out of this world, and it's an international facility, with 6 people living 240 miles up in the sky. I mean, that's just an amazing concept, in terms of human history, and it's this research base where, amazing science operations are going to be performed, and we'll learn how to survive in the harsh environment of space and apply that knowledge back to Earth. So, the future is exciting, and we're optimistic about where we're going. And we'll have a lot of near-term science operations planned. Once Atlantis departs, we'll be getting busy with science operations.
Let's see, is that all, James?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we're back here. Anybody have any wrap-ups? Okay, let's see, a couple of quick programming notes, hopefully. After the briefing, of course, we'll head back to Mission Control, but then we'll have the Flight Day 10 highlights. That starts at 3 Central, 4 Eastern today. Then we'll play the features that you might have seen. If you haven't, the Space Shuttle feature narrated by William Shatner is up this evening at 7 p.m. Central. Then the Launching Our Dream Space Shuttle program video at 8. We'll have an ISS flight director update from the Public Affairs Console again. I think that's again with Courtney McMillan when she gets off console. That's a little after 9 p.m. Central. Wake-up call tonight for Atlantis and the International Space Station crew is at 9:29 Central, 10:29 Eastern. They'll get into that busy day of activity that Chris laid out for you. And the two crews, of course, will bid farewell and close the hatches, as you heard, a little after 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and go to bed about 1 o'clock Monday afternoon. So with that, we'll close the briefing. Thanks to Chris and thanks to everybody else for showing up today. We'll head back to Mission Control and back to space.
Hi, I'm Steve Sides.
Ruben De Leon.
Shanna Andrew.
And I'm Heidi Brewer. We are the Instrumentation and Communication Officers on the final shuttle mission.
And you're watching NASA TV.